So let's talk about what's going on in Arkansas. Newly elected governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, formerly of the Trump administration, is now the new governor. Of course, Governor Huckabee's daughter, Governor Mike Huckabee's daughter.
Yes. And does she want to turn Arkansas factories into sweatshops, complete with child labor? Well, that's what the mainstream media would have you think. Here are a few headlines telling you that she is rolling back child labor in her state. Here's the Washington Post saying she does not want to protect children. Arkansas Governor Sanders signs law loosening child labor protections. Here's BuzzFeed saying she's rolling back protections. So she doesn't care to protect kids, is what they're telling you. That's what the headlines tell you. That's what the stories tell you. Well, okay, what does this really do? So the bill that they're talking about is the Youth Hiring Act of 2023. Here is the summary of what it does. And literally it's like one page. This is it. All it does is dispense with the state's requirement that children under 16 have to obtain permission from the Division of Labor in order to be employed. The rest of it is like sort of good things about that. But literally that's all it does, is mean that children under 16 no longer have to go get a work permit. Did you ever go get a work permit? I did.
I don't remember. All I remember is, and someone's like, is this wood? No, this is like a heavy iron thing. This is not wood. Did I have to get a work permit? I never got a work permit. Well, maybe I did. Maybe I have to ask my mom if I did. But I had a paper route when I was like 12.
Yeah.
I worked at McDonald's when I was like 14 or 15, and I had to get something so that I could work there. Because I was working in the morning shift, so I'd be there at like 5 in the morning, which you had to be there at 6 if you were young or something. I don't know. I had to maybe get some kind of special thing.
It's just a bureaucratic paper.
Just a paper, yeah.
I did that as well. So now they're saying that if a child is younger than 16, they can get a job without a work permit from the state. That's literally it. So let's talk about protections. Does it make a change to the number of hours a child can work? No. There are still limits on that. Does it make a change to the minimum wage that you can pay a minor? It does not. Does it make a change to the types of jobs that children can do? It does not. It actually is just one tiny bit less bureaucracy in the world. That's it. But the media still wants you to think that this is dangerous. So they dragged up a person to have a comment about it. This advocate for children says, when we think about the kids working who are 14, we think about who this might protect. It's not the 14-year-old who's working at an ice cream parlor in your hometown whose parents have given them permission to work. We're worried about the children who are at risk of being exploited and who are being exploited every day. And then the article goes on to cite these instances of a U.S. food sanitation company that operated facilities in 8 states and had to pay out this $1.5 million civil penalty for employing minors in hazardous conditions. And this sanitation service illegally employed at least 102 children between the ages of 13 and 17 in jobs that required them to use toxic chemicals and clean razor-sharp saws. Yeah, that's not a great idea. But those things, guess what, are still illegal in Arkansas.
But the left and the media are pretending that it's not. Like, those are the things that are now legal. Like, kids are going to be down there with skill saws.
Right.
Honey, how was work today? Mommy, I lost another finger.
And before, while the permit was in place, that did not protect them. So the permit was not the thing that stopped them from working on sharp saws. I just decided to mosey on over to the Arkansas child labor laws. And I scrolled through, here you go, the things that are allowed and not allowed. You see, they haven't removed this work permit from their website because it only was repealed yesterday. But here are some of the things that a child still can't do. Soldering, working in scaffolding, mines, working with wood shapers and wood jointers, planers, sandpaper.
Hold on. You can't work in any pool or a billiard room.
Yes, I don't think that means a swimming pool, rolling mill machinery, laundering machinery, steam boilers, railroad tracks, saloons.
Is there a saloon? I want to go to a saloon. A saloon.
Warehousing and storage, communication and public utilities. These are all just things that, like, I think they got it covered. I don't think the work permit.
Meat packing establishments. Well, we got rid of that with Upton Sinclair back in the early 1900s, thanks to his,
Yeah, slicers, grinders, wood choppers. Circular or band saws, metal cutting machinery, like that's all there.
I didn't see massage parlors on there though.
I don't know if a child can make a massage, but I think you need a license for that.
I would think so. What a creepiness that would be.
Why did your mind go there?
Because I was thinking like, well, they have a billiard rooms, but they don't have like, I don't know, creepiness where like Jeffrey Epstein type people would go.
We're talking about child safety, not child exploitation.
I'm talking about child labor. Yeah, these are child labor.
If they're like banning them from a pool room would because of because there might be bedding or
smoking
people.
Like,
but no, so
hey kid, go get Billy another beer.
Okay.
I got. Go get One-Eyed Jack over here another beer while he, lines up and some 9-ball.
Hey, mister. Yeah, let me go and, get you a hot dog.
Banning them from working in saloons so they don't get shot by a cowboy in a duel.
A saloon.
Yes.
he cleans the spittoons.
Yeah. Well, actually, this bill that required a work permit was of that era. So if you look at this next response from somebody, Rebecca Burks, who sponsored the bill, is talking about how Arkansas passed the child labor law back in 1914 because of the concern for children missing school, going to work in factories, and having to get a permit signed at the time by a superintendent. But she said that permit is not needed anymore. It's one small regulation, one small burden on businesses, and also steps in front of parents' decision-making process about whether their child can, under 16 years of age, can get a job, she said. So now, it's up to your parents if you work or not. It's not contingent on this. What are you laughing about?
I'm just thinking, the kid comes home one day and he's like, Mommy, I have an application for a new job. And the parents are like, oh, honey, what is it? Wood chipper. I love that that's
Great.
on the list. Yeah. Honey, you're not going out for the wood chipping job. Can you figure out something else?
Well, you know what? So
they said that the last kid didn't show up for work, or they can't find the other kid, so I get the job, Mommy.
The thing is, my dad was driving trucks at a rock yard at 16. And I think about that now, that's a big job. You could get crushed there. They didn't even have I was going to say somebody else in the chat just said I was welding at 14 years old. Right. And so, these ideals of what children can and cannot do, I think are really hard on children. And I think about this every day as a parent, especially in a world where we think that the most important thing that they have is a good college entrance admission with all kinds of started a nonprofit out of my basement to stop child trafficking, right? Like that kind of child who's really just doing stuff on the internet that they think looks good on a college admission, or, going candy striping. I don't know if they call it that anymore. Do you know
what does that even mean?
Like candy stripers?
When you run naked down the street?
No. What's with you tonight?
I don't know. I'm on Rumble now. I can say what I want.
You're thinking of strippers. Because
I got this Rumble award, I can say what I want now.
No, Clayton, that's wrong.
That's candy striping. I don't know. It's like an old 1800s.
It's I don't know what that is. The volunteers in the hospital who wear the red and white stripe outfits.
Oh, right. It's like a nursing assistant kind of thing.
Right. Okay.
But not accredited or anything.
Right. So I think that this generally speaks to the ethos of the leftist media to just coddle children. And like the saying goes, I love this saying, is that if you want to raise a child, if you think you're raising a child, that's what you'll get. But if you think you're raising an adult, you're going to get an adult. And so I think about this all the time. Am I treating them like a child? Because the research really shows that children who have real world skills have a lot less anxiety. They don't get so anxious about things in the world. I can think all young people these days just hate talking to adults. Like we ask our son sometimes to go order Starbucks and he's like, no,
or just make an order, like go up to the counter and ask for something, or
right.
do that, and he's like, no, I
they
can't talk
just
to
don't
an adult.
do that. And that's a different thing. But the idea of like, can your child, work their own calendar? Can your child, use a credit card and know how to check the balance? Can your child like exist in the world in a real way, or have you done everything for them that by the time they get to college, they literally don't know how to be, and just find so much anxiety because the skills to write a good college admissions essay do not translate into the real world.
Like there was that funny meme going around. Maybe you shared it a couple of weeks ago, or I don't know if it was Philip that shared it, where there's someone, like the kid went off to college and was cleaning the oven.
Oh, yes.
And the kid that he would cook something, and he's like, God, I have to keep cleaning the oven. Do you guys have to clean the oven after every time you cook in the oven? And like the parents was like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, every time I cook like a chicken or anything, I constantly, it burns. So I have to then I have to get in there and scrub it every time. And they're like, wait a minute, you're putting like chicken literally on like the grate? You're not putting it like in a pan?
Yeah.
Or anything? Like, how does that person get to college and not know how to cook something in an oven?
On a baking pan.
Yeah. Instead, they're just dripping right down onto the burner.
Yeah. I would like to recommend a book about this, about the coddling of the American mind, which is exactly what the book is called. How good intentions and bad ideas are setting up a generation of failure. The authors point out how children today are just babied to the point that their anxiety is through the roof because they feel ideologically unsafe. But children, I think there are 5 things, and I can only remember 4 of them, that children who do these things are more well-rounded and less anxious. It's children who do chores, who go to religious services, who do homework, and who spend time with their families, particularly around meals. And so, this sort of work ethic for young people, we're removing it for what? And I think we should take that to mean children with experience in the world. Doesn't mean they have to work, right? But some kind of work. Even my daughter, every day they come home and I have a whiteboard with their chores, and she's like, "My friends don't do chores," and I'm like, "What? What's this world like? What are you doing then? Who's doing? I don't know." Another book that I would like to recommend is How to Raise an Adult. And in this book, it's written by a former Stanford dean. And she gives all manner of examples about how college-aged kids these days literally just don't know how to exist in the world. So when they get a cold, they don't know how to buy cold medicine. They don't know what is what. Like, they don't even know what Tylenol does. They don't know how to maintain their car. They wait until it breaks down and call AAA. And so when their parents say, "Did you maintain the car?" And they're like, "Yeah, AAA came when I broke down." Like, that's what car maintenance is for them. She tells a story of one child who had his boxes delivered to move to campus, and they were too heavy for him. And they sat there for like a week and a half before someone said, "What are you going to do with these boxes?" And he was like, "I don't know, they were too heavy." He didn't even think to ask anybody, and he didn't know how to help himself. So he thought how can we raise children like that these days? I don't understand it. And especially this is on top of mind because, my kids are preteens and I don't want to treat them like babies. And then also my father, who I was telling you about, I brought a little picture of his, he's celebrating 50 years in business. I cropped the picture. You can take it down now because I was wearing something kind of booby and I am embarrassed about it. Like, who do I think I am?
Well, now you called attention to it.
I know, but still.
Wearing something kind of booby.
Like, I have something revealing on, let me not
but
show it.
But I want you to see my father because I thought I cropped it more than that. And then now that I see it on the full screen, I'm like, oh, no. But because my father took out a bank loan at 16 to get a rototiller so that he could start a business like rototilling lawns in the Bay Area for other landscapers because they didn't have that service. They would rent them. And so he's like, well, I'll do it for you and then you can do the install. And I just wonder how, if it's such a clickable article to say that not having a work permit for a child 15 is now exploiting children, how are we ever going to raise children who know how to work?
I don't know.
Or know how to be in this world. How can we empower children if this is what we think is an abuse of child labor law, that they don't need a paper?
Yeah, like the coddling of these children is just disgusting. So, I mean, and I think all of our audience here hopefully, feels the same way about this, which is like, self-sufficiency, teaching these children these life lessons, these skills that'll last them a lifetime, right? Those hard skills. Like Philip is a journeyman carpenter, for crying out loud. Like in a zombie apocalypse, like that's who you want on your side.
For sure.
Someone with like Philip's skills, that's what you want. And so learning these things early, just simple. Like I saw a bunch of people saying, I learned how to weld when I was 14 years old. I learned how to drive a tractor when I was, Brizvitz says I was a forklift driver at 3 years old. I pulled the wheels off and cried. Oh, is that a forklift, the toy? Yeah,
okay. That doesn't count.
Yeah. But using some of that equipment early on.
I grew up in farmland, so it's like running tractors and things like that was just stuff we always did, like the large lawnmowers and brush trimmers and stuff like that. It's just stuff we did. I mean, I was like 13 years old. My dad had like an illegal like fiberglass mold shop that he was just like making molds. So there was like this perpetually burning fire pit out in the yard. And at like 13, I was driving an El Camino around that burning fire pit, like out in our yard. Just
doing donuts.
So.
Yeah, but who did it hurt? It only really, built skills in you.
Right.
So
exactly.
I used to have to. My dad has a green waste recycling grinder, and it's like the size of a school. It's huge. And so it takes green waste and it puts it in a big tub grinder and then grinds it into mulch. And you have to wear a hard hat, but you have to pick through the green waste pile for metal or what have you. It's called a screener. So you go through basically a big pile of forestry that's been cut down, and you're picking through it, and you're just filthy after that. You're in a hard hat and you have dirt everywhere and so hungry. But those are things that, like, who's gonna let my kids do that now? I was 14.
Yeah.
Is that even gonna be allowed? Every time my dad comes and he's like, we're gonna build a chair, or we're gonna do some kind of, like, they need to learn life skills, and I'm like, okay, have at them. Because I worry that they would just only be able to know how to navigate a world of TikTok.
Yeah.
So anyway, let us know what you think in the chat. If you think we should get our kids a circular saw or what have you. Our kids actually have used those things with my dad to build furniture.
That's right.
Is that what you call it? I don't know the proper names of them.
I don't know. Wood projects.
Yeah, a circular saw or skill saw. So
it's a table saw. Yeah, it's in a table.
Kids
saw.
have used my table saw with me. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I had, like, speaking of table saws, I had a friend that was like, he was a grown man, and we were sitting at dinner with, it was like back when I was married, but we're sitting at dinner and he's talking about like table saws, and he's like, man, they're just so dangerous. He's like, I was running one the other day and it just grabbed the board and threw it right out of my hand across the room. And I was like, what? And then another guy at the table was like, yeah, I've had that happen before. They were both using it backwards. They were running it so that the blade was pushing away from them, so that as soon as the board hit, it just rode over the blade. And I was like, that would be the most dangerous tool on the planet if that was how it was supposed to be used. I was how do you not know that?
Oh my gosh.
That's what happens. Yep.
Wow. I mean, I hate to be one of those, like, uphill in the snow, kind of parents, like, I did this. But literally, we are removing real world skills from children every day. The authors of the book I just mentioned talked about how there's a school somewhere in, I think, upstate New York, where the rule is that children cannot touch freshly fallen snow because that inevitably leads to snowballs, which could have an object inside of it that could poke someone's eye out. So the rule is you can't play in the snow, you can't touch freshly fallen snow. There's another county, I forget exactly where it is, and I think it's in the Midwest, where children are not allowed outside by themselves under the age of 16. Like, they can't go alone anywhere. I don't understand this, and it's like this fetishizing of security for children, and the word safety, it's just going to get worse unless you push back against it, when statistically children are safer than ever before in human history. So let us know what you think in the chat, or if we're being anachronistic about it.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.